In this tutorial, we'll take a look at fonts, how to find fonts, how to download them, and how to install and manage them. So let's start off on our website and take a look at the resource page that is set up for typography. I'm going to scroll all the way down to typography and click on it. These are some excellent resources. I hope you take some time to browse through them and just kind of see what's available. Right now I'm going to come down to the free font resources section and take you to my favorite source for free fonts, Dafont.com. Dafont's great because it stays categorized and it has some really good search features. So once you pick a category, you're able to first off just browse down and look at it, and it's a very straightforward, here's the font, here's the download. You can also see more information about the font by clicking on it. Once you click on it, you can see exactly what letters are in the font, and as well as symbols, numbers, all that jazz. You can also find out information on the person that loaded it and created it. May I point out that it is important to credit somebody who has made a font if you are using it for a project that will be published or sold or anything that you will profit from. Typically, if it's for a personal project or even for an educational project, you don't really need to worry about crediting them, although it's always a good idea. So I'm going to go back to the page before and show you the real reason I love this site is I can type in what I want to see the font previewed as. So if you have a specific word you're looking for, something that's useful, mostly I look for functionality. So I want to make sure that my font has capitals, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. I also want to see what variants are in the font. So I'm going to click Show Variants and then hit Submit. Once I've clicked these options, I can see that this font has got thin, thin italic, regular, and regular italic. So that's got 4 variations, which looks pretty good. Let's just download this very first one. I'm going to choose to download it to my desktop. My browser is set in its preference settings to ask me where it wants to download. If you've not set that up, yours will most likely download to the Downloads folder, which is down by the trash can. Alright, once you've hit save and it's successfully downloaded, you navigate to that spot. Right here it is on my desktop. I'm actually going to look at it in window view just because I like that a little better than big old tabs on my desktop. Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Alright, so desktop. Here we go. Your font will most likely download as a zipped file regardless of where you find it at. So you first have to open that by double-clicking on it on a Mac, which will give you a copy as a folder. So once you have that folder out, you can actually just click on that and hit Command Delete to get rid of the zipped folder. You don't need that anymore. Let's double click in here and take a look at our fonts. So it's got Bebas New, if we want to pronounce it that way. I can install that by double clicking on it and then choosing Install Font. So that bunch of flashy might happen on yours. I honestly haven't seen it happen on mine, but I'm not going to worry about it. This is FontBook, which comes with every Mac, and it is a way that you have of previewing and managing your fonts. I will admit I don't use this, and I probably should learn how to use it, but I'm going to show you the other way you have to install fonts, which for me, works much better than a font book because I have to stay mobile with my fonts. I work between many different computers, and it's much easier for me to grab a folder and go than try and figure out where all of these are. Something you need to know about fonts is the more that you have installed, the slower your computer might run, especially programs like Photoshop. So it's a good idea to keep active only the fonts that you are using and keep a kind of a storage folder for fonts elsewhere, which I would create in so I've got under my Rachel Home thing, I've created a My Files folder, and that's kind of where I dump stuff, so I'm going to just create a fonts. And I'm going to say Fonts Archive, so I know that this isn't the active fonts. Let me, just for kicks and giggles, move my actual font archive into there. Alright, so here we've got a folder that's just archived. Now, you can keep them organized within that. So here I have the different types of fonts. Decorative, grunge, and so on. If the font came to me in a folder, put it in there like that. Often the font folders contain information about who made it or some examples of the font in use, which are useful to have. But now what we need to do is I'm going to close out of Font Book and show you how to set up a font manager folder. The first thing you need to do is find the actual font folder that's on your computer. So if you come over to the sidebar and scroll down, there should be a Macintosh HD under Devices. If you click on that, you'll see a System folder. You can double click on that one and click on the Library folder in there, and then scroll down to the Fonts folder and double click on that. So these are the system fonts that come on your computer, and you typically want to leave these alone. You don't want to alter them or delete them because the system needs them, and your programs might run a little funky if you start moving those around. So we want to leave those alone, but I want to be able to quickly see what fonts I have loaded in. So I'm going to create a new folder. I could do that by coming up to the top where this little gear is, clicking there and saying New Folder. And my computer is set up to ask for a password, and then I'm going to call this one Font Manager. Okay, now this folder is where I can actually load all of those fonts in my archive too. So if I come over to my Files, Fonts Archive, these are the folders that I want to move over here to Font Manager. So the thing is though, you don't want to move them, you want to copy them because we want to keep all of our fonts in Fonts Archive. That way we can just come in here and just delete fonts when we don't want them and not have to like refile them. So a really quick easy way to copy is to hold down the Option key, and when you click and drag you'll notice you'll get a little plus button, and when you let go it'll actually make a copy of these. So now if I go into my Photoshop, which I haven't got open, let's see how quick it pops up. Oh, that was pretty quick. Create a new file. I can start typing in one of those new fonts that I have, and there it is, it's been installed. Alrighty, so those are installed. To uninstall those from the Font Manager, all I would have to do is select whatever font it is and delete it. So having fonts in multiple folder tiers is not a problem. It's a great way to keep them organized. The last thing I would suggest doing is to create an easy access way to get to your fonts folder to move things in and out the Fonts Manager folder. I would suggest doing this. So I'm going to navigate back one so I can see the actual Font Manager folder. I'm going to click on it and start dragging it and hold down Command and Option, which will give me this little curved arrow. When I let go of that on my desktop, that creates an alias. So this isn't really a folder, it's just a doorway into this folder. So when I double click on it, I'm looking at that folder that is actually in my System Library Fonts Font Manager folder. Okay, so that's how you can download, install, and use and manage your fonts.